well, maybe we'll get going and I can just admit people
Mhm.
if anyone joins after.
Mhm.
So normally, just to start off, obviously if anybody has any questions, we normally stay on mute until kind of question time, but you can in the chat box as well, or let us know that you want to come on to ask a question. So do that if anybody has anything to ask, although if there's not many of us here, then I'm quite happy for people to kind of unmute themselves and just butt in as well. So feel free. But I'll just introduce it a little bit, because I usually explain so that we can kind of get the context of what this summit's been about. So I call it the Self-Rediscovery Summit because for me, I think a lot of people come to self-rediscovery with the idea of kind of playing with and exploring who we are in human form. And for me, that is a part of it. But it's also about seeing deeper about who we are beyond that. And I think in our wisdom. So I know obviously that's something that you share. So that's why I thought it'd be lovely to have a chat. And we've just been hearing from loads of different speakers about loads of different topics, really, live every Friday usually. And also I jump on live in the Self-Rediscovery Facebook community to help anybody if they've got any questions or anything after that they weren't kind of able to answer, get answered live. But yeah, I'll just, for anybody who's listening who hasn't met you, I'll just do a little bit of an introduction to you. So yeah, so today, oh hang on, let me just add one person. There we go. So we have the wonderful Jacquie Forde with us today, who is one of the most nurturing and beautiful people I have ever met. She makes everyone feel safe and reconnected, or she certainly did with me when we had a chat a little while back when I was on your podcast, and it was just such a lovely energy that I thought, oh yeah, this would be a good one for the summit. So here we are. But it's really interesting how this conversation kind of came about, really, because I'd got you all kind of signed up and coming on today's session, and then you didn't really know that I was pregnant and experiencing any kind of suffering with it. So it was really funny when I said, oh, what do you want to talk about? And you were like, oh, well, I'd quite like to talk about pregnancy and parenting. I was like, oh, amazing, because I'd literally just that week or that day even been like, oh, do you know what, I need to rewild my pregnancy. And then there you were. So that was really good. I'm just going to add someone else. Yeah, so it feels like it's just kind of come about from wisdom, really, this conversation. But yeah, so just to formally introduce you, I'll just do a little bit about your background. So you're a professionally qualified Three Principles Facilitator, international speaker and coach who works with organisations and individuals all over the world. You devote most of your coaching practice to helping people understand the psycho-spiritual principles behind the human experience, helping them gain greater clarity and success in life and business. Your work is guided by the Three Principles, which I've been banging on about on this summit for all this time, which is really cool. A new paradigm in psychology, and you're the founder and CEO of a non-profit principles-based campaigning and wellbeing consultancy for political improvements in Scotland and the UK to improve health, mental wellbeing and equality, especially for disadvantaged communities. When you're not creating projects, campaigning for social justice or helping people understand the human experience, you love to mentor people to deepen an understanding of the Three Principles, and as a midwife, doula and coach, you enjoy guiding people lost in the midst of pregnancy and parenthood, which is what we're here to talk about today, and the corporate sticky floor to get clear about living an abundant, joyful life with clarity and purpose. So that's the formal bit done. We can just kind of dive into the human bit now. So I kind of always start with a bit of a personal journey. I don't know, because I think people like to hear a little bit about kind of your own journey. And so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about, I don't know anything about your kind of own journey with pregnancy, or whether that's something relevant to share. So I'm just going to leave you to it, basically.
Oh no. Well, I think because tonight's discussion is about pregnancy, and the reason I wanted to talk about pregnancy and about labour and about parenting and about antenatal care was because we're living in such uncertain times with what's going on at the moment with COVID-19.
Yeah.
And I have had as a woman, my journey as a woman, I've had three children, three daughters, who now age and range from 22 to 27. But I also lost a baby in between the first and second child. I was a nurse and I was a midwife. So even although I kind of knew what was going on with me, there were still moments in that journey where things seemed very uncertain and very scary.
Mm.
At this moment in time, my eldest daughter, Megan, is pregnant. She's due in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Bless her.
And I guess this was the catalyst for wanting to speak about this tonight, Nicole, because both Megan and I and her sisters are navigating this journey of a first grandchild coming into the world. And I can't be there to help Megan the way that I would want to help her.
Oh, yeah.
And her sisters can't be there. And she's uncertain about what's going on and what's happening. And this is her first pregnancy and everything. She can't get access to doctors. You know, antenatal care is kind of out the window. The classes are not happening. And, you know, that's a powerful part of being pregnant, is having these antenatal classes and the camaraderie of meeting other women and knowing what your journey is going to be like. And that just isn't there for Megan.
Yeah.
And it's not there for millions of other people around the world right now. So that was the protagonist for wanting to talk about this tonight, to share my journey with my daughter and my journey with other women that I'm currently looking after as they navigate this pandemic across the world, in the hope that it helps people, not just people that are pregnant, but people who are parenting and wanting to be more relaxed about the unknown, more relaxed about the anxious feelings that they're currently having, and helping them see that they're okay. Despite what's happening, we're okay.
Yeah, I love that. It's so powerful, I think. And I think I was listening to a podcast actually earlier in this week, and it really reminded me that kind of pregnancy is a time where we almost step into that kind of power in a way. Of course, like last week, that wasn't how I was feeling at all. So I was really excited to hear what you're going to come and say. Obviously, there is a wisdom kind of behind life that I know of, but you always have your blind spots, don't you? I think especially when something like this is going on, it's one of those things where it can feel really scary and isolating. And yeah.
But here's the thing, we're always in our power.
Yeah.
Always. All of us are always in our power, always in our essence, unless we think that we're not. And that's where the power of thought comes in. That we can think that we're not safe, that we can think that things aren't clear, that we can think that things are uncertain, when in fact, that is just an idea or a concept that we actually have. Because I bet everybody that's listening to this has had a feeling or known that even when things weren't going the way they wanted them to go, they've known that everything was okay.
Yeah.
There's a much deeper knowing beyond our intellect that guides us day to day, moment to moment, that when we get out of our own way, we know we're okay.
Yeah, I love that. And I was actually writing. So one of the ways that I kind of almost drop back into my wisdom is through writing. And I guess that's because, you know, a big part of writing for me is listening to myself, and it's that deeper listening. And so when I was kind of going through this week, I don't know if anybody knows about it, but I was going through kind of lots of tests and hospital visits amidst all this craziness, which was the last place I wanted to be. And also having nuclear scans. So they were saying, you know, you need to sign this consent form to say that you're okay to have your baby radiated and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I was just journaling, and I ended up writing an article for Wilding magazine. And as I was journaling, I just realized that kind of wisdom was like the very kind of foundation of being pregnant. It's like these cells were just collecting themselves really intelligently without me doing anything. And how could it kind of not be present? How could wisdom not be a part of that? So it was kind of proof. I was like, oh, well, the whole kind of concept of pregnancy is wisdom. And that kind of dropped me back into it a little bit. I was like, oh, yeah, there is an intelligence behind life.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Nicole. That is the essence of life, isn't it? That wisdom is absolutely behind everything.
Mm.
It's the way you cut your finger and it heals without you having to do a thing to help it heal. It's the way that your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system work together to keep you safe. It's the way that, especially, in pregnancy and in labor, what I try to teach women is that if you get into fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system, if you get into that through scaring yourself through thought, you're releasing adrenaline, you're releasing the opportunity for all your muscles to tighten, which makes your labor harder. It just makes it far more difficult than it needs to be. Whereas if you can breathe and relax, and this, it doesn't matter whether you're pregnant or you're not pregnant, it's the same principle, that if you can understand that feeling that's arising in your body that says to you, oh, I'm tense, oh, I'm anxious, that's your wake-up call. That's your GPS immediately saying to you, you're lost in thought, whether you're conscious of it or not. So your sympathetic nervous system is responding to whatever you're thinking. We're always living in the feeling of our thinking.
Yeah.
And so when we know what that feels like, then you also know what the converse feels like, what the opposite feels like. So I'm always saying to everybody, and especially to women that are pregnant and about to go into labour, when you know that you're caught up in thought, your body will tighten, it will tense. When you know that every thought that's going through your system is just doing its job, it's just doing what it's meant to do, and you don't need to get involved with it, what happens is that there's this natural ability to just fall back into presence, to fall back into the moment and not be here having a contraction thinking, shit, it's going to get worse, or my God, what's that baby's head going to feel like when I'm pushing it out, But you just stay completely present in the moment, doing what you're meant to do, breathing, following the clues and the cues that your body gives you when you're pregnant, but also when you're going through labor as well. It's beautiful because your parasympathetic nervous system calms you back down again. So you don't want this going on, sympathetic, parasympathetic. You want to be able to know, oh, I'm tense, I'm lost in thought. Breathe. Because when you're breathing and focusing in on breath, you cannot overthink. It's impossible.
Yeah, I love that. And it actually was breathing that kind of returned me to my wisdom, even just in that kind of stressful situation with the hospital this week. And I think I guess because I'm one of those people who kind of, when I came to the principles, I was like, well, there's nothing to do. But I feel like anything that reminds us of our wisdom is something that's good to do. So breathing feels like a good one, although we're breathing anyway. Right. But
yeah, but it's a conscious choice, isn't it? Because often when people feel tense, what happens is they become hypoxic. They're not getting enough oxygen into their brains and into their cells. And with that comes a lack of clarity. With that comes an inability to make decisions. With that comes feelings of feeling more stressed and feeling anxious because you're not giving your body the oxygen that it needs. So if you breathe and take that mindful moment to be present, then what happens is you give your body what it needs.
and allow it to just kind of unfold and do what it's meant to do, because we were born to do that, right?
Mm-hmm. I always remember, like our daughters when they were doing their exams, excuse my COVID nails, by the way, our daughters when they're doing their exams, and it's true of everybody. When you're sitting and you're bending over and you're working in your computer or you're working on your, you're sitting in an exam or whatever, you're breathing and your breathing is shallow. That doesn't oxygenate everything it's meant to oxygenate. Okay. So there's always this reminder of sit back, open up the capacity of your lungs to breathe, and take a moment to breathe, take a moment to be present, to be aware. And I don't care whether you are a 5-year-old who's anxious about being sick at school, or you are a 16-year-old who's anxious about asking a girl on a date, or you are a woman who's pregnant and worried about what's going on at the moment, or you're in labour, or, you know, I don't care. Giving your body oxygen and breathing in a mindful way that brings you back to the present moment is beneficial.
Yeah.
So I'm always very wary of cliches in this understanding. Nothing to do.
Yeah.
Listen to what you're meant to do.
And I guess the listening, we were talking with Nicola Bird last week, and it's almost like the listening is the doing. Like the only thing we really need to do is listen deeply to ourselves and our bodies and what we need, I guess, in each moment to bring us back. But that's how it feels to me.
But that's all that matters, Nicole. If that's how it feels to you, that's all that matters. You know, and all of us that speak about this understanding, we're only ever talking about our own personal experience. We're not talking, I'm not speaking for anybody else. You know, this is how it looks to me.
Yeah, I love that. It looks the same way to me as well.
Absolutely.
But we are all human and we all have our own individual thoughts, and so it can look different, right?
Absolutely. And we have different ways of saying these things and describing these things. But it's in our own sharing, that's our own truth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gorgeous. And just going back to the present moment is kind of, it's I think what's going on with COVID is almost like that's all we have right now is the present moment. It's almost kind of flung us into having to just live from the now. I don't know if that feels true for you, or how that relates to pregnancy.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think about Megan. Megan's 26. She's going to be 27 in July, and this is her first pregnancy. And Megan's always been very good at sort of having fixed ideas about how she thinks things are going to be, and you know, and this kind of threw her a wee bit, you know, that this wasn't going to be the way she wanted it to be. I mean, they even had they've got a messenger list of who gets told when and how it all works out and who was going to get to visit the baby first, all this kind of thing. And at first, when I started talking with her, she was very upset about how her plan of how she thought this was going to be wasn't the way it was going to be. And I just kept saying to her, Nicole, it's the way it is. And the more that we argue with that, the more that we suffer.
Yeah.
You know, you have to accept what is. Because when you don't accept what is, you're constantly arguing with reality. And when we argue with reality, nobody wins. Absolutely nobody wins. So we've spent a lot of time talking about this. And she's now in a space where that's okay. It's okay. This is okay. We're so lucky we have technology. You know, I might not get to, I love smells of babies. Babies smell gorgeous and sort of their wee gorgeous wee peachy bums and things. You know, I won't be able, you know, I don't know what age the baby's going to be when I get to see it, but, you know, and to hold it and to smell it and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I can get myself into a bit of an issue with that, or I can just accept that. And this is actually the first time I've spoken about it. My eyes haven't filled, which shows me that something's shifted again, that something's changed, that I'm okay with it. I'm okay with all of it because we're keeping Megan safe, we're keeping the baby safe, and that's what's important, and we're keeping ourselves safe right now.
Yeah, and I love that because I think quite often when we talk about kind of acceptance being the key, it's almost like acceptance then becomes another thing that we have to get. It's like we have to make ourselves accept it, whereas actually it kind of just unravels. Like eventually it will be accepted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a gorgeous metaphor about that, and it's about a Buddhist monk, and a young woman in a village was pregnant, and she was too scared to tell her dad, who had made her pregnant. And eventually she just said to her dad, oh, it was the Buddhist monk, in the monastery up the road. And her dad was furious, and he went up to the monastery and had a real argument with the monk and said, when this baby's born, I'm bringing it to you. I want nothing to do with it. This is not going to happen. And the Buddhist monk just said to him, is that so? Is that so? And in the moment the baby was born, the father took the baby back up to the Buddhist monk and said, well, you look after it. I'm not interested. Buddhist monks just said, is that so? And then 18 years later, when the young girl said to her father, who had actually made her pregnant, the father went up and apologized to the Buddhist monk and said, I'm really sorry. My daughter actually told me who it was that made her pregnant. And I'm sorry that I treated you the way that I did. And I really need this young lad to come back to help me on my farm. Is that possible? And the Buddhist monk just said, is that so? And I love that. There's no arguing with that at all.
No.
Is that so? COVID-19 is here right now. Is that so?
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Yeah, and what about all the what comes to mind as we're saying that is like about all the people with their kids at home who are like, oh yeah, that might be, but
Absolutely.
but now what?
Yeah. There's something, Nicole, if I can share it, that I'm sharing with all the people that I'm working with at the moment, whether they're pregnant or they're working or they're entrepreneurs or God knows whatever they're doing. They're just human beings. There's three things that I'm saying to people right now. And the first thing is cocoon. Cocoon.
Yeah.
Nestle in.
Yeah.
When, a caterpillar changes into a butterfly, it completely dissolves. It completely dissolves into the moment within that cocoon until it's ready to reform.
Yeah, I love that. And that's kind of how I felt. It's very much, again, talking about acceptance. It's like, actually, well, we just need to surrender right now in a way. That's a word that's come up for me. I guess it's just another label for the same thing. But yeah, I love that. And also, I guess even pregnancy is kind of a time for that in a way. It's like on the podcast the other day, they were talking about kind of giving birth being that kind of, in a stark contrast to like the hospital experience, where it's kind of bright lights and everybody asking questions and measuring your blood pressure. It's actually more beneficial if you can stay kind of nestled in and home and comfy and warm. And it very much feels like, even as part of that journey, that is kind of a natural inclination to cocoon.
Yeah. But cocoon isn't to hide. Cocoon is to nestle in, to understanding how you're creating your state of mind in any given moment.
Yeah.
It's not, for me, it's not a hiding, it's an understanding that there is a safety and there is a comfort in knowing that I'm always creating my experience in each and every single moment through gifts of mind, thought and consciousness that every sentient being experiences and shares. And cocoon to me means just to nestle in with those I love and not to have expectations, just to have whatever that moment brings. I mean, I don't have young kids running about my feet at the moment. I don't at all. I've just got my gorgeous husband, Mr. Lovely, who's always, I mean, he thinks he's Bob the Builder at the moment. He's building all sorts of things, which is really cute. We've ran out of fence paint, and also we can't paint any more fences. And it's beautiful. Cocoon to me is to settle into the moment.
Yeah, and I guess that could even look like dancing if you wanted it to,
Oh God, you know what? Your kids are going to learn what they need to learn when they need to learn it. This isn't a time for hard and fast rules and regulations in your life. This is a time for flexibility. This is a time for knowing love and experiencing love and reaching into that within each and everyone that you're living with. And then that's the next thing that I say to people. It's about connection. right now, I mean, it's always about connection, but right now it's about connection. I'm finding that the conversations I'm having with my daughters are so much deeper than they are when we've met in person lately, because there's no other distractions. You know, the conversations are just beautiful. I've been talking with one of my daughters about Brené Brown, and she's been talking to me about sort of, you know, Naomi Klein's work, and it's just been gorgeous. It's like, oh my God, we're having intellectual conversations instead of bitchy conversations about her and her sisters. This is really lovely. Thank you, God. You know, it's just been really beautiful, and connecting with family, with the older relatives in the family, and, you know, cousins and friends. And taking this opportunity that if you're pregnant and, you know, maybe you've just had your baby, connect. Just because people can't be there physically with you, it doesn't mean they can't be with you on a soul level. And we know how easy it is, even online, to connect at that deeper level with people. You don't have to do it in person. You know, you can do it like this.
That's it. And I think these conversations are even kind of proof of that. It's like, just drops you into that space, doesn't it? And I think that's, like you say, that's where the most important kind of, I guess, where the nice feeling comes from. Or yeah, it's interesting because again, I was kind of like, oh, what if I can't do antenatal classes? How am I going to know what to do with the baby? Or you know, like, and it's like, well, actually, it's kind of an opportunity to reconnect with family and other people, and you know, there's such a resource there for you and your daughter. It's almost like worked out better in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Megan just managed to squeeze in her baby shower before the lockdown.
Oh,
And I made a wee speech at the baby shower, and, you know, sort of to all these women that were there and to Megan. And I said, you know, Megan, you're surrounded by wisdom.
yeah.
You're surrounded by sisters. We may not all be blood, but we are all sisters. We are all breathing, living, feminine energy that's there to support you no matter what's going on, whether we've given birth or we have been birthed. There is love, there is wisdom. Lean into that.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. And it's who we are underneath all of our thinking that we're not.
Yeah, but, you know, again, we always laugh in our family because, you know, I knew I was pregnant with each of my pregnancies, Nicole, because I wanted to eat mushrooms. It became a joke. I mean, this was like the next day. I mean, this was how strong this was the next day. So my body must have needed some kind of zinc or something. And so by the time we had the third one, and, you know, and I woke up the next morning and said to Jerry, I want mushrooms. It was like, oh no, she wants mushrooms. And Megan herself, you know, when the next day, she knew she was pregnant. There's just this deeper knowing that when we're connected into it, which we always are, always, we just think we're not,
Yeah.
it guides us. And I always say to people, my body and your body knows more about pregnancy and about labor and about childbirth than you do. Get out of your own way.
Yeah.
And that's an invitation to get your intellect out of the way and just be. And the same thing goes for parenting. And the same thing goes for relationships. It's always the same. You know instinctively what to do, but we second guess ourselves.
Yeah. And I think often almost listen to the noise as well. Because for me, it was like, even with this kind of suspected pulmonary embolism, I don't know if I was already talked about this, but, you know, they sort of said, oh, well, you've got two options. You can either, you know, just go home and not have any medication and not have the scan, but you probably, you know, if you've got an embolism, you'll die. or
Thank you.
you can have the medication. And I was like, in my wisdom, I kind of knew that it was muscular, but I still went down the route of the medication, because when somebody presents it like that, it can be very difficult to kind of trust your own instincts, I think, or it felt like it at the time. And normally I'm quite tuned into that, but I think the idea of dying was very humanly playing on my mind.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's one of the things that's very heightened at the moment, Nicole.
Yeah.
So that's completely understandable. You know, that you've got that going on, and you're going through sort of your second trimester of pregnancy, and things are still working away and building and growing, and you're probably a bit tired, and that all helps us not make the best decisions. And to be honest, childbirth and pregnancy has been medicalized so much over the last 40, 50, 60 years that power has been taken away from women. Women have known for centuries how to give birth, how to be pregnant, to listen into their bodies, to know what they're meant to do. And they have done that in times of famine, in times of plague, in times of war, and in times of poverty. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. We are now just in exceptional circumstances that are new to us, but they're not new to our mothers or our grandmothers or our great-grandmothers or our great-great-grandmothers.
Or our bodies.
Exactly, Nicole. It's there. We know what to do. We know how to do it. But it's not the ego intellectual driven version of who we think we are, but it is the essence of our spiritual energy that knows what to do.
What comes to mind there is like, we think we are the ones who have to do it. Like, we think that we have to micromanage it and figure it out. And well, how are we possibly going to do that?
Yeah, but this whole thing about, you've been conditioned all of your life to believe that there is a separate self. And that this is the way you're meant to do it. And I always say to women, for God's sake, stop watching programs where the women scream all the way through their labours. Please stop it. That's not real life. That's not, I've delivered thousands of babies. That's not how it works. It isn't how it works. You'll occasionally get people like that, and women who want to tell the stories of how horrible it is and how hard their labour was. It's just kind of like, do you know what? I was sick from the moment I found out I was pregnant till I gave birth with all three of my daughters, all of them, to the point that I ended up in hospital with drips and God knows what else. Do you think I tell anybody that? It doesn't bother me. It was just like, there was something beautiful coming at the end of it.
Yeah.
It helped me lose a wee bit of weight on the journey, which was always welcome. And the baby was always great. They were like £8.4 and £8.12. Your baby will take what it needs in spite of you.
Yeah.
It will grow beautifully. Your body will do what it needs to do in spite of you.
Yeah.
You're not that important, really.
No, it's amazing, actually, because you say, just even being aware that, that the screaming birth isn't kind of your typical birth, is just you watching programs, and that's how it kind of looked to me. It was like, oh right, that's how it's going to be, okay. And then, like I say, I was listening to this podcast with Leanne Brooke Tyler on Rewilding Pregnancy, and I was like, oh. So it isn't that like that at all.
There's a beautiful, and I'm sure Jessie would agree with me here, there's just this incredible energy that takes over you when you are in labour and you're getting near to giving birth. I mean, it's just so primal. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And you ride that, you go with it. I found that with my middle daughter, Nikki, I was about 8 centimetres dilated by the time I got into hospital, because I knew what was going on, and I was a midwife, so I was checking up myself to see how I was doing. And I got into hospital and I'm in the lift, and I was doing okay, and then I just felt this sudden urge that I thought, shit, I have to push. And I said, no, I want a water bath. And I got upstairs and I got in the pool. And I was literally in the pool for a minute, and I went into transition. And transition is this beautiful phase where you're fully dilated. Your primal urges are like, your smell, your taste, your hearing, everything is on high alert because you're about to give birth. And the nurses are trying to get me out the birthing pool to get, sort of to get me on the bed. I'm like, no, I want it out here. But Nikki, unfortunately, had, she'd pooed herself and inside me. And so they needed to get me up in the bed to make sure everything was okay because, the birth was happening so quickly. But none of that frightened me because, and this is what I want anybody who's listening to this who is pregnant and is worried about COVID and having your baby, they have not found that it crosses the placental barrier. That just isn't, they haven't seen that. That isn't a thing. While the baby is in your womb, it is fully protected. In all of the hospitals all over the world now, they are taking extreme care to make sure that you and your baby are safe. Now, that may mean that your partner is only allowed in at the point where, you're in good going labour. Trust the staff. The midwives are there to support you. They will make sure that you feel safe, that you feel loved, that you feel listened to. Trust that and trust your body. And just take each moment as it comes. Don't think, I'm having these incredible contractions and I'm really worried about what's going on. And think about what might happen in the future. Just be with that contraction as it rises and falls. Just like you're with each breath as it comes and it goes. It's when we start to time travel and anticipate what the future might be like, that is when we start to suffer, because we get into all the stories of what we think can happen and could happen. That's an incomplete equation. Is that so? Be in the moment with everything right now. It's all you have. And if you go beyond that, that's when you start to get into trouble.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. It's almost like pregnancy is kind of the purest time when you can see wisdom. In a way, that's how it's kind of feeling to me at the moment, because like I said earlier, it's like the cells just are intelligently collecting themselves without me doing anything. And it's felt like to me much of my life that I have to do something in order to get anywhere, and it's like, oh well, I'm literally doing nothing. Well, I am, but my mind isn't figuring out how I'm going to grow the baby, or
But this is the next stage in your evolution, Nicole, to see this.
Yeah,
to see that you're not the one in control. You never have been. You just thought you were.
Exactly. It's all been a big illusion, and I see that from time to time. But I think when I kind of I had a miscarriage last year, and I think that was the first time I really clearly saw that my body just knows what it's doing. And for me, that was quite revolutionary, because although I'd kind of seen that in little bits, because I had chronic fatigue syndrome when I was twice in my life, when I was 23 and when I was 10, and I had kind of seen that, that was kind of my body's wisdom kind of slowing me down. But when I had the miscarriage, it was really very much like, no, your body really knows what it's doing. It's getting you through it. And so I feel like that itself is again evidence, if you want to look for evidence, that there's like wisdom there that is always guiding us, always supporting us, and always living us, I guess.
And it's stepping into that and accepting it. And it doesn't really matter whether you're just going about your life, or whether you're pregnant, or whether you're in labour, or whether you've had your baby and you're feeding it, whether you're bottle feeding it or breastfeeding it, or whether you're parenting. It's all a journey, Nicole, to waken us up to who we really are, not who we think we are.
Yeah, the magic. Yeah, that's gorgeous. I don't know if anybody has any questions, because I'm just going to open it up in case anybody does at this point. Otherwise, we will keep talking. So if anybody wants to come on and ask a question, then feel free. So just let me know if you do. If you don't, that's fine. We can just carry on with exploring. Can't see anybody raising their hand or writing. So yeah, I don't know what you want to talk about next. I think there's so many areas to kind of explore, but I guess the wisdom is kind of there no matter what we're talking about, right? So whether it's parenting. Oh, Claire has a question. 1 second. I'll just unmute you, Claire, if that's okay, and then you can ask your question.
Hi, I'm really sorry not to turn on my video, but I had a bath with the children and I'm in my pajamas.
Fine.
Here.
I just wanted to say how much I'm enjoying this call. It's just lovely. Jackie, I'm being very soothed by what you're saying. I love it. I've had three little ones. I've got a 6, a 4 and a 2-year-old. And when I was 39 weeks pregnant with my second, in fact, I'd gone into labour, so I was having contractions. And my husband got an email. He's a pilot. And the email said that his company had gone bust. And he didn't have a job. And I'm self-employed. And it was the most extraordinary time, because in my head, a minute before we had that email, I thought, okay, great. I know what's happening. This is the 3rd time. The other 2 are going into nursery. Great. I can get mum and dad up. I can go into hospital and have my baby. That's nice. Great. And then this happened, and my body just took over. It went, okay, not now. So everything stopped, and James had to go off up to the airport and anyway. About 48 hours later, it stopped. It started again, rather. And it was almost, I think, of all 3 of them, the most beautiful birth, because, and I'm really excited for you, Nicole, going through it, because it is the most extraordinary, special thing that you will, one of the most amazing things you will go through. And I just remember, nearing the end and nearing the moment that I was going to start pushing. And the love that I had in my body was breathtaking. And I remember looking at my husband and thinking, I can't really kind of put it into words, and certainly not without bursting into tears again, but it's, your body knows what's happening, and your wisdom and the love, it's an incredible process. There's no other time that I can imagine or remember being so present.
Yeah.
So thank you for allowing me to kind of have those memories, and for the gorgeous words of cocoon and connection, Jackie. I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. We do need to see you in your pajamas, though, Claire.
Oh, well, it's actually worse. I'm actually in my mother-in-law's Christmas present from a few years ago. That's a onesie.
Even better. You said something incredibly beautiful there, and that was that you were placed in a situation of uncertainty. And in that position of uncertainty, you were able to transcend that and just be. And here's the thing, we all think we know what's going on. So we have this idea that we know how everything is going to unfold and what's going to happen, whether you're pregnant, in labor, or whether you're in life. And we just don't. That's an illusion. And what you got to see in that moment was the illusion, Claire. And that is gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to turn on my video.
Yay! That's a beautiful onesie.
I mean,
Oh, it's lovely.
Anyway.
No, thank you for sharing that, Claire. It's so lovely, because to hear the passion and to hear the love behind what you just shared as women, that's what we need to be doing with one another.
And if you don't mind, can I just say one other thing that I heard?
Yeah.
Because I come from a medical background. I'm a speech therapist. And it was just before I came to the Principles about 7 years ago, and I did a course in America on mindful birthing. And it was beautiful. It was a joy. And you mentioned about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system, and it's weird because it's just resonated with something that I've been thinking about for the last few days about inspiration and expiration,
Mm-hmm.
and how neither trumps the other. They're there. It's a constant. It's like this, and it's like, you know, sometimes we're feeling inspired and in the flow, and other times we're feeling quite contracted. But it's okay, because they're just feedback mechanisms, and they're just going around and around and around. And there's a lot of, when you really feel that and know that, you can just take your foot off, because it's there for you. You don't have to do anything. It's there for you, working for you, with you. It is you.
Absolutely.
I love that. I think it was Dickin, and I always refer back to this, who said, you know, we don't tell our lungs how to breathe, and we don't tell our hearts how to beat. And that just really spoke to me, because it's like, no, it's all happening for us. So I love that.
Thank you.
Oh no, thank you, Claire. That was lovely. Lovely to hear you and to see you. I hope we didn't badger you into showing us your Wednesday. You know, I think there's another thing that I think is really important during this discussion as well, and it's to be mindful and present and aware of the language that we use. You know, about how we're living our lives, but especially because this discussion is about pregnancy and about labour and about antenatal care and everything else, is understanding how your own internal dialogue is helping fuel your experience of life. You know, and I heard my daughter Megan, and she was talking about her contractions the other day there. You know, she's starting to have lots of Braxton Hicks, and I'm like, that's great, you know, and our mucus plug has gone, and I'm like, God, that's wonderful, you know, and checked that it was all okay, and you know, asking her the colour and everything about it. And I just said, you know, hon, what if you thought about these contractions in a completely different way, that these are powerful surges that your body is giving to move things along. Contraction sounds like something that's contracted and painful and doesn't move, whereas this is a surge. It's a surge of energy that's going through every cell in your being, but especially within your womb, to push the baby down. And she was like, oh my God, Mum, I never thought about that. You know, and it's just about listening to how you speak, and listening to, you know, sort of to what you're saying. And pain isn't really pain, it's pressure. That baby's got to come out. You know, it's hitting against your cervix until your cervix opens. You know, it's got to come out. But if that was just pressure doing what it's meant to do by effacing and dilating your cervix, then it's doing what it's meant to do. It's not something that's painful, which again, the word pain would cause the sympathetic nervous system to go into overdrive, which then causes it to think, oh, tense muscles. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever had to try and push through something that is tense, it's harder than something that just gives way.
That's gorgeous. Yeah, I love that. And language is so powerful, I think, as well. And it's even just talking about language, and when Claire was talking about love, it's like, for me, that's just another label for wisdom as well. So I think it's like we all have these different words, and but yeah, I love what you just said about kind of pain being pressure and contractions being surges. That makes a lot of sense. And it's like,
to me, that's powerful. It's powerful, and that's who we, I mean, geez, women are incredible, powerful beings. We create life. We grow life. We birth life.
yeah.
And we do the ironing and the washing and the cleaning and the shopping and the emotional support. I mean, you name it, we're doing it. Okay. And that's why, you know,
I don't know about that actually. I think I'd say my partner does that.
we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. You know, but especially now, I think I always say to people, you know, be gentle on yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Because when you're gentle with yourself, you're not judging yourself, which means then that you have an increased capacity to be open to the moment instead of giving yourself a hard time that you're not doing what you think you're meant to do.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I love
Especially you, Jessie, Mammy.
Oh,
because it isn't, you know, it's not easy having your whole life disrupted right now. It's not.
No.
But it's about finding a way to be in this situation that works for everybody.
Yeah, because I think as well at the moment a lot of people are feeling stressed, and if they are pregnant or, you know, parenting even, we can then get in our heads and beat ourselves up about being stressed even. That's a really important point. It's like, well, no, let's be kinder. We need to be kinder to ourselves because it's kind of crazy what's going on at the moment, and
it's just bizarre. I can't get my head around it, and I'm glad I can't get my head around it. It's just like, what's going on? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I spoke with my youngest daughter today, and you know, she said, "How are you doing, Mum?" I said, "I had a real Groundhog Day yesterday. I did not have a nice day." I said, "But I feel better today."
Yeah.
And she said, "Me too, Mum." I'm not going to hide it. You know, it's just like I just had a bit of a very strange day. I felt a bit low.
Yeah.
You know, I would never put a label on it and say I was depressed or I just felt lower than I normally do. That sparkle behind my eyes wasn't there. I was missing in action. Because I was lost in thought, whether I was conscious of it or not.
That's it. And I don't see that there's really a necessity for labels, really, because it's just made up anyway. It's just you know, a low mood, which is kind of understandable with the craziness that's going on as well. But yeah, I've forgotten what I was going to say there. There was something else that came to mind. I think I was wondering what your find, because you said about the cocoon and connection. I think you said there were 3 things.
There are 3 things.
Have we covered it?
The last one was creation. So that is create things that help you stay in the moment. Whether that's routine, whether that is love and talking to people, whether that is creating, writing or drawing or painting. It's about getting out of your left brain. Okay. And residing in mind, residing in that power of energy that is just pure consciousness.
Yeah, that's
good. You know, and you know, I've been saying to sort of some of the mamas that I've been coaching at the moment, you know, one of the loveliest things you can do is have structured time with your children, but not to think that you're a school teacher. You're not a school teacher, you're their mum. Do things with love. You know, have fun, because you're never, ever, ever, ever going to get this kind of time with them again, where you're not working, where the dad's not working, or you're working from home and they're not at school or they're not at nursery. Create memories that you're going to be proud of and grateful for, rather than, have you done your times table? Have you done your science project? Do you know what I mean? This is about love. It's about creating memories.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. And everybody's in the same boat, so it's not like they're missing out. It's, you know, it's enriching to have that, I think, that reminder of what life's really about in a way, because we can get so lost in kind of schools and timetables and all the things that we should be doing, and it's almost like we've been given the opportunity to have a little bit of a rest from that and reconnect to what's more important in a way.
Always has been more important, but you know, governments etc. don't want you to know that, because they want to keep you on the old, you know, spinning wheel, the hamster wheel, so you can't think about anything else. I know for sure that this experience has made me realize that my life, even though it wasn't going at 100 miles an hour, was still too fast.
Yeah.
Was still too fast.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live my life at that pace. I just don't.
No.
You know, even my daughters are the same. They're like, oh my God, we need to slow down. You know, and I thought their lives were very slow.
We can always get slower.
We can always get slower. Yeah. I guess it's when you see them struggling with one thing, but you've done that and another 10 things at the same time. You know, and you know that as a parent, when it comes to their time, they're going to have to do that too.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But yeah, nothing's certain. We just think it is, and this is an opportunity for people just to, as life changes and, you know, we can't do the things that we were doing before, and, you know, the antenatal classes and doctor surgeries and everything that you thought your pregnancy was going to be slightly different. Look for alternatives. There are classes online. The National Childbirth Trust have all sorts of free, they've put all their classes online now. There are doulas out there, there are midwives, there are coaches who are willing to help you through this. And realize if you're anxious, it's okay. It's okay. All that's happening is your system is telling you that you are lost in thought and there is a different way to be.
Yeah, that's lovely. And also, I remembered what I was going to say earlier when you were saying about feeling low. It's like we're human, aren't we? That's all that's happening, is we're just experiencing our humanness, our thinking in the moment, and that's all it is. And that's why there's kind of no need for labels, really. And, which is very apt, given your podcast is Unashamedly Human.
That unashamedly human's always been a thing for me, because for people to learn, Nicole, not to be afraid of their own experiences, you know, that would just be huge. And that comes from, you know, that Sid Banks quote, if the only thing that people learned was not to be afraid of their own experiences, that alone would change the world. And I think right now, that more than ever. So anybody who has this understanding needs to be sharing it.
Yeah, magic. Are there any more questions before we finish? Because that's quite a nice place to leave it, I think. But if there are any other questions, then maybe we can just... Oh, we got Jessie. Do you want to... I'll unmute you. There we go.
Sure. I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to share a little story that kind of echoes what Jackie was talking about how things are online and doulas are still available to help. For my second birth, it was so interesting. We actually did have a doula, and I love her to pieces. And she was completely opposite from my first birth, and that like the first 12 hours after my water broke, nothing was really happening. And we're talking to our doula, like I didn't really have a need for her because there's just not much happening. And we were at the hospital and I was starting to get uncomfortable. And I was like, you know what? Like what happened was my mind was like, my body should be doing this faster because JJ was super fast. And I was like, I'm just really uncomfortable. Let's just do the epidural, because I just had like this moment of fear. And my doula, we're on the phone with her. She's not there. We're on the phone. And she's like, you know what, Jess, that sounds like a great plan. How about I hop in the car and like, I'll come be there with you. But I just have one thing for you. And I just don't clench your butt. Just don't clench your butt. This is at 2 a.m. I was like, okay, Sarah, fine. And so I'm like, great. Like she's coming. Like we have a plan now. And I had the contraction of all contractions 5 minutes later. And I think what happened was it was that virtual support from Sarah, hearing her voice, her just really just being like, that sounds great, good plan, like I'm here with you. And, you know, just kind of like throwing in a little joke in there, and my body just relaxed. And I also think my daughter was kind of like, you know what, we don't need an epidural. I'll just come now. We don't need to do all of that. I'll just come now. So I just wanted to share that story as an example of doulas and virtual support, I think can be very real.
Yes.
And helping us calm us down and reconnect with our breath. And so I just wanted to share the power of virtual connection, because it's so real. And I think when we think about birth, we think that people have to be there with us, and there's just a lot of other ways. I also had a few friends text me when I was in labor with Nellie saying, oh, like, I'm thinking of you. Or it's like, you know, I remember when my kiddo was born, and like that it just went so far. So kind of what Jackie said, for any women listening, it's like there's resources out there that even though it's different, I think you can still get what you're looking for, or get the support that you were originally hoping for,
Absolutely.
just in a different way.
And not necessarily a lesser way. I'm going to put that right out there,
Yeah.
because you've just described that, Jessie. Like I said, there is a sisterhood. Women who may not be blood, but they have history, they have experience, and they're willing to share that with you. And as long as that sharing is impartial, you know, that this is the way it worked for me. It might not be how it works for you, but here's something, you know. And I was kidding my daughter Megan on. I said, you know, when you're breastfeeding the baby, I said, I can help you. You know, we can do this over FaceTime. And we both just laughed. She goes, I'm not showing you my boob over FaceTime. Megan, it makes no difference. Do you know what I mean? It's just a nipple, for God's sake. You know, and yeah, that was something that I thought I would be able to help her with in person, but I can still help her, you know. And I love that. I love that I can still help.
That's gorgeous. What that also spoke to me of was that it's almost like that was just a reminder of your wisdom in that moment. And it's like anybody who can just point you home. That's what it feels like. It feels like that connection. It's about it comes back to connection again, doesn't it? It's like
absolutely
points you back home to your own truth, your own wisdom is helpful. You know, even the text messages from friends and things like that. It's anyone just pointing back, because I had that when I was in hospital, and you know, friends just reminded me that I was stronger and had more wisdom than I knew right then. I was like, yeah, that's probably true actually, and I liked that, because it's like I think that just that conversation and that connection is beautiful.
Yeah, little reminders, isn't it? Little reminders that you're okay.
Yeah.
I do have a question if we have time. I'm not quite sure how long these sessions are supposed to go, but I guess the thing I'm struggling with now is I'm just a pretty active person. I love to be doing things. Usually on the weekends, my kiddos and I we either have like swim lessons, or we're going to grandma's house, and we just don't have those things. So I'm finding I'm having a lot more anxiety when there's this like void of space until nap time, that it's just like my kiddos are super active. I want to be doing stuff. It's getting better here in Minnesota. It's starting to warm up, but like something I'm taking away from this call is reconnecting with breath. When I start to feel like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And my kids won't eat their lunch. And like things just are so crazy right now, like reconnecting with breath. But any other insights or wisdom about, like, I feel like with this whole COVID thing, it's kind of telling you like, Jess, you just need to chill out. You don't have to entertain your kiddos all the time. Like, they're fine. Just, you know, it's fine for them to watch 3 movies today, and it's fine for them to, you know, make a giant mess. But any other tips or wisdom for helping me like calm down in the moment when I start to get kind of like, oh.
Question for you: what makes you speed up?
What makes me speed up? Gosh, I just want to, like, just the uncertainty of what's going to happen next.
Where does that come from, Jess?
I guess the feeling to be productive,
Where
to always be
where does that come from, Jessie?
my thinking. Which is so habitual and always there for me recently.
But it is until you see through it, love. If you see that there's always a doing and an action, then you won't see through the concept and the idea of what you think you should be doing. Because when you're residing in that slower space, that being space, you will know what to do with your kids. You always have.
Mm-hmm.
You always. But if you're coming from the space of you're living and driving each and every moment via a concept that is based in thought and rooted in thought, which is an untruth, then you're riding a carriage that doesn't have a horse.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
You've got this.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice analogy for me, riding a carriage without a horse. Mm-hmm. And I'm so appreciative of this understanding, because deep down, I know we're all good. Like, the kids are totally fine. I think they probably think this is great that we just get to hang out at home and we don't have to get dressed, and you know, there's not as many rules or things to do.
Catch yourself. Catch
yeah.
yourself. Do you know what I've been saying to people? Write them down. Write down, make it visible what you think should be happening, and see through it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'll do that.
Good.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome, love.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Just that kind of coming back to the topic of expectation. I had a client this week who was talking about the same exact thing, and again, like you said, I think you said at the start of the call, the only place where we can suffer is in the gap between expectation and reality, and so it's again, it's just that noticing when we're struggling with expectation, I think. Yeah, that's how it looks to me anyway. Lovely. Well, yeah, that's great. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, just to finish off, I just want to thank you, Jacquie, really, for sharing today, and so beautifully. It's just had a really nice feeling to it. So thank you. And also, I wondered, what are you working on at the moment that you'd love to share with us?
Mm-hmm. There is a new website being launched on Monday. It's kind of up there already, but it's been formally launched on Monday. There's a 6-week masterclass kicking off next week, which is all about thriving in uncertain times. And my Missing Link book club is kicking off again the week after that, which is always a good thing for people to take part in. It's a lovely 14-week deep dive into Sid Banks' work and other spiritual teachers, looking at the principles and the principles in action. So there's that. The Unashamedly Human School is being launched in August, and I'm hoping my book will be launched around about the same time. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, and I'll be a grandma within the next 4 weeks. All being well.
That's so exciting. Yeah.
I know. So I was kidding my daughter on. I said, you know, this wee baby, if, you know, we're all in isolation for a long time, I said, it'll just know us through Facebook. So when it meets us in real life, it'll just think we're giants.
That's hilarious. Oh, bless you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Nicole. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and just to finish off, I'm just going to introduce the next speaker for next week. So next Friday the 24th, I'm going to be holding space with Dick and Bettinger. So that is super exciting. He's here to dive a little deeper into the true meaning of what wisdom is. So I'm really excited about that, because Dick has been a really influential teacher, or whatever you want to call him, in my own journey. He basically, just to introduce him a little bit, he met Sydney Banks 28 years ago, where he kind of basically really learned from him all about the 3 principles. So he's going to be here to share that with us. And I've also extended the summit. So it was meant to finish at the end of March, but I'm just going to keep it going because I've been having so much fun with it. So we're going to just continue to have different people on. So we've got, after after Dicky, we've got Dominic Scafidi, and then we've also got people like Rahini Ross lined up as well. So there's lots of amazing people to join us. So yeah, just keep going and dip in where you want to. And like you, actually, funnily enough, I have launched my Self-Rediscovery School. So that starts in April with a program called Self-Rediscovery Foundations, which is basically, again, a 6-week online program that gives us a chance to have a new conversation about self-rediscovery and dive deeper into who we really are beyond all our narratives. So it feels like now is a really nice time to kind of hold that safe space to explore the foundational grounding of the 3 principles and rediscover our own wisdom amidst all the kind of craziness that's going on at the moment. It's kind of nice to have that community, like you're talking about, really, to just hold space and explore. So yeah, there's a lovely group coming together for that. So if it's calling you, just reach out and we can have a chat. But and there's more information on my website, but I'm going to pop all your links up, Jackie, as well. So if you let me know the new website, I will pop that in the interview comments as well.
Oh, it's just the JacquieForde.com one.
Oh,
it's
perfect.
the same site.
Okay, lovely. Well, I'll pop that in the link so that everybody at home can, who's going to be catching up as well, can have a little look. And yeah, if anybody's got any questions, do just email or get in touch. I'm sure either of us are happy to help. So yeah, but other than that, have a lovely night and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Lots of love to you all. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.
Stay safe.